From day one, I wanted Saie to be big. I was not starting Saie to be a side project or a small brand. Like, I was going to be a top 10 brand at Sephora. I think resilience is hands down the number one skill for a founder and entrepreneur. If you have confidence that you're going to get there, when you get a no, it's just one step closer to getting that yes.
For Sephora to say, we want you in every door, that doesn't happen, right?
I couldn't believe that they reached out and said, we want to launch you in every single location. Then COVID hit while we were having those conversations. We had no idea how consumers were going to react. Honestly, it was a day by day kind of survival of the fittest.
From the outside, Saie is a massive success, but I'd imagine there are some things that still keep you up at night.
I dreamed of being at Sephora, but I did not know that that was going to happen. We had multiple conversations with them, and ultimately they were like, you only have 3 products. You're not ready.
I'm Sammi Cohen, and this is Social Currency, a podcast that unpacks the stories that are shaping business, culture, and the intersection of the two.
Before we dive in, quick reminder. If you're listening right now and you haven't subscribed yet, hit subscribe. It helps us keep bringing you conversations with the founders, building some of the most exciting brands in the world. And today's guest has built one of the most successful beauty brands of the last decade. Laney Crowell is the founder and CEO of Saie Beauty, the clean beauty company that went from a startup launched right before the pandemic to one of Sephora's fastest growing brands and a leader in the modern beauty industry. Today, Laney shares how she navigated fundraising with no prior experience and how she conceptualizes expanders, the people who helped her believe that building a company was actually possible. Towards the end of our conversation, Laney opens up about the trade-offs of building a dream company, what genuinely keeps her up at night as a founder today, and why community has become one of the most misunderstood buzzwords in consumer business. This is Laney Crowell's Social Currency. Laney, welcome to Social Currency.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
I want to start this conversation with something that you said recently that stuck with me. It was in the Emma Grade podcast, which was fantastic. You said that you feel more like yourself now as CEO and founder of Saie than you ever have before. That struck me as really interesting because I sit down with a lot of founders and they actually say kind of the opposite, where getting into this leadership role was a little bit scary. They felt like they had to grow into it. But what I get from you is this feeling almost that's like, I was born for this. And I'm so ready now that it's here that I feel like I've really not even grown into it, but it's who I was meant to be.
Yeah. So
I want to get into that. But before we get into that phase, who was Laney before the CEO of Saie moment?
It's funny that you bring that up because so many people have asked me about that specific statement. It wasn't that I wasn't doing things that I loved before Saie, because that was always what my thesis was like, do what doesn't feel like work, do what feels passion project, if you will. Not that I didn't need to make money, but I just knew that if I did what I was excited about, I'd be good at it. That's just my personality. Like, if I'm not excited about something, you can tell. I was working in LA. It was my first job out of college, and I was working at Lionsgate Studio. And I'll never forget. And I wish I knew his name because, like, I need to send him a thank you note. It was the guy that was sitting next to me, like the cubicle next to me. We were assistants. And he was like, you know, everyone else here is reading scripts and you're reading magazines. So I was like, oh, you're right. I've always loved magazines. Maybe that's what I should do. And I moved to New York and didn't know hardly anybody, kind of like beat down doors until I got my foot in the door at Elle magazine. I was an intern at Elle, unpaid, full-time, long hours, loved every second of it. Finally got my first like real position at Lucky magazine.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so fast forward to where you are today. Do you feel like you were made for this moment? Do you feel like the time at Elle, and we'll get into, you know, your time at Estée, do you feel like all of those pieces prepared you for what you're doing now in a sense where you always knew that you'd get to where you are now?
I mean, I look back on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's kind of wild. Like, even though it was very much a jungle gym progression, each like step led up to this moment, from understanding and having a deep knowledge of the beauty industry from my time at Estée, learning from the best of the best there, to my time in editorial and even Lionsgate. My very first position was really understanding how to do storytelling in a very unique and editorial way. You know, people always talk now about how brands are becoming media companies and telling things from this very media perspective. But we've been doing that from day one just because that was my background. Even the places where I got really into social media and I started blogging, how that has contributed to the way in which we communicate and market today. Was there a little bit of feeling of destiny there? For sure. I think when I said that comment, though, about feeling like myself, I think that it speaks more to being a woman and being allowed to lead and being in a way that just felt really natural to me. Like I remember when I first started Saie and I was building the company, I almost felt like visually I could see myself stepping into the light. And what I mean by that was just like, I just felt like I was getting to act like my truest self in a leadership position.
And I think that's so important. And I want to drill into that because I feel as though to see a woman who is so unapologetic about loving leadership and creating this vision into like a wildly successful company that you've built, we need more of that, of women who are building and unapologetic about leadership and feeling like they truly deserve it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably why it struck a chord with so many people because you don't hear it.
Yeah, I think people maybe say more like, yeah, I was nervous or this. And it's not that I didn't feel those emotions as well. Like, of course I did. And I think I've put a lot of work into learning how to lead and be a good executive. And I'm always growing and learning. As women, like we're not told or taught that that is a natural place for us to be. And it is a natural place for us to be.
Your childhood was spent moving around a lot because your mom
I moved
worked
a lot.
Yes. How many times?
Oh my gosh, I'd have to go back and count, but it was about every 3 years.
Wow. Yeah. So new schools, new friends, new
language, everything.
Yeah. So now, obviously, having all of that experience in hindsight to look at, how do you feel like that has contributed to your leadership today?
Definitely resilience. We did a lot of hard things. We moved every 3 years to places with different languages, different schools, different friends. It just taught me that you can figure it out. You're okay after something hard happens. I think resilience is hands down the number one skill for a founder and entrepreneur in my mind.
Yeah. And it's not a coincidence that so many very successful founders and entrepreneurs have a background where as children, as they're growing up through adolescence, they have to be in these situations that are constantly challenging them. I think that tie of just seeing how challenge at an early age really shapes you.
It's such a positive thing. Yeah. And as a parent, I'm always having to pull myself back because I see my kid get disappointed from losing a game or I see them getting their feelings hurt and my instinct is to protect. But when you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, the most important thing I learned in my childhood is resilience. You want to actually encourage that.
And so before Saie, you worked in fashion. You spoke about how you then went to Estée and then you ran The Moment.
Yeah.
When you think about those early days across fashion and doing everything at Estée, which is more legacy beauty, what are the foundational lessons that you've learned that you still apply to basically your day-to-day framework and how you think about building Saie?
Storytelling. I feel like that word is used so much and I almost want to create a new word for it because when you work at a magazine, you are telling so many stories at once, it almost becomes second nature, but you're looking at this really long tail way in which you're communicating and you're not selling, you're painting a picture. And I think that has been so fundamental and important in the way that we communicate at Saie. Just even yesterday, we were working on this caption for this Instagram post that we did about these trucks that we did celebrating our partnership with the Knicks that are driving around New York City right now. We have a product that was inspired by the Knicks. The name of the product was inspired by the Knicks. When we wrote the caption, we led with that. And I was like, no. Let's not lead with the product. Let's lead with like how New York inspires us and how the hustle of New York is why we needed a 16-hour setting spray. Even just changing the progression of how we crafted that Instagram post, that's how detailed we are in our storytelling. And that's very much how it was in magazines.
Oh yeah. Magazines is the masterclass, right? And how to build a story. Yeah. And then you think about social media today where everything that you put up, it has an image, visual, whether that's a real Instagram video, static carousel. So it's like you have the storytelling there of what the actual visual is. And then the caption, it's like a whole other thing. And it's like, how do those two complement? Just even what you just said.
And then how does that fit into all of the storytelling?
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I got that training because to your point, like it was best in class working at Condé Nast and learning from that incredible talent that I was there at the same time with. I just saw Elise Lonin. I saw Jean Godfrey June the other day, and I'm just like, they are such masters.
Over a year ago, I took the leap and left my corporate job to run my media business full time. The entrepreneur life is hard, but there's nothing more rewarding than betting on yourself. If you've been sitting on a business idea, Shopify makes it easy to make it happen. Everything you need to start selling is included and ready from day one. I had Shopify president Harley Finkelstein on the podcast and was super impressed with all of the capabilities they've built out for entrepreneurs, including removing the friction when customers are ready to pay. Shopify Checkout helps more of them finish their purchase. And when they come back, their details are already saved. One tap and they're done. And as a consumer, I'm relieved when I see the purple pay button. When I'm shopping online and I don't have to get up to go get my wallet because my information is saved, chef's kiss. Because Shopify handles the setup and checkout, you have more time to focus on growing your business and the tools to do it. Shopify powers millions of businesses worldwide, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to small businesses just getting started. With Shopify, nothing stands between your idea and a real business. So go make it one. Start your free trial at shopify.com/socialcurrency. That's shopify.com/socialcurrency. You've heard me talk about Built as the loyalty program that lets you earn points on rent wherever you live, and they just leveled up even more. As of 2026, homeowners can also earn up to 1.25x points on their mortgage payments. And this is thanks to Built's 3 new credit cards, the Palladium Card, Obsidian Card, and Blue Card. All 3 turn your housing payments, rent, or mortgage into flexible rewards. So you can choose the card that fits your lifestyle without missing out on points and exclusive benefits. Built points can be redeemed at top airlines and hotels, Amazon.com purchases, future rent payments, and more. Built points have also been ranked by top publications as the industry's most valuable point currency. Your housing payment is already your biggest expense, so make it your most rewarding. Find the card that fits your lifestyle and apply today at joinbuilt.com/socialcurrency. That's joinbilt.com/socialcurrency. And make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Terms and limitations apply, subject to approval and eligibility. Built cards are issued by Column NA, members FDIC, pursuant to license from MasterCard International Incorporated. So I want to move over to some tactical stuff here, because so many of the listeners of this podcast are in the early stages of building. They are hearing conversations like the one we're having now, and they're thinking about, how can I apply what Laney has done to what I'm building, right? Okay. And I know you've gone into some of the tactical sides of fundraising and what that process was like for you. But I want to dig in even deeper, because when I was listening to parts of your conversation with Emma Grede, I was literally like snapping away with everything. I'm like, these are the conversations that need to be had. We need to get into the, not only just the fundamentals, but like, how did those calls go when you're starting from zero and you're building your list? And I love how you said you had 70 names on the list and you don't know where you got that number from, but you're like, that seems like enough, right? Like, there needs to be more transparent conversations about how especially women are developing the right strategy to raise capital to get their companies off the ground. And that's like a hill I will die on.
I could not agree more. Like, I think there should be step-by-step guides for all of these things. And as women, like, let's hold hands, let's do it together. Let's go. Because the conversations aren't being had, there ends up being this kind of like confusing, amorphous period, I think, for entrepreneurs. There are some very step-by-step things that you can do. And I had to figure out by myself. I've actually been kind of writing some stuff down just for Substack and different outlets, because I want this exact information shared. In terms of tactile, do you want to talk about fundraising first?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So actually, really quick before we get into some of the more specific items around fundraising, you've said that you needed expanders to show you that even just starting, say, was possible. And the word expander, I want to dig into that.
Sure.
So what does that mean to you?
To me, there's this Maya Angelou quote that I love. That's, when you know better, you do better. I think that a huge part of, at least for me, in the way that I learn, is by knowing more and seeing examples of things that are done so that I can then go and do it. And especially for women founders, we just need more examples of people. And thankfully, there seems to be more and more who are doing such beautiful jobs that we can look to of like, okay, they did that. Well, now I know that I can. I'm always looking for expanders, and whether that's in how something was done or the success that they've had or the size that they've grown their business. I don't know if it's just the way that I learn, but I find that to be so helpful.
Okay, I'm the exact same way. Okay. And for me, it gives me the confidence when I know a person, a company, something that I can essentially use as a mini case study, and then I can apply that to what I'm doing. So for you, when you were looking for these expanders, were these mostly people in the industry who have done what you wanted to do? Was it just like not necessarily you talking to the CEO or founder directly, but you saying, oh, I know that this company that launched 5 years ago did this. What tangibly were you going to for those like expanding moments?
Those proof points?
Yeah.
I think for me was the thing that resonates the most for me is when I can see myself in that person where I'm like, oh, they have the same background that I had in terms of experience, or they were the same age as me, or I can find some little point where I'm like, oh, we're similar in that way. Therefore, what they achieved, I know that I can. That proof point is what I search for. And then I kind of hold on to that, and it just becomes my daily reminder of, I think confidence is the perfect way to putting it, of like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it.
And so when you started fundraising, you've said that you did not know anything about the process.
Nothing.
So just to give people an idea of how long it can take looking at your story, from your first call with whomever it was on your list to start the process, ask about the fundraising process, to the last check that you got in for that initial amount of funding that you raised. Yeah. How long was that?
Probably from when I started working on my pitch deck to that final check, probably around 6 months.
Did you feel, looking back, that was slower than it should have been, faster, just right?
I want to say I spent 3 months working and perfecting that pitch deck. And then I spent 3 really, really intense months fundraising. And when I say intense, I mean, I went all out. So I was taking 10, 12 calls a day, back to back to back, knowing that it was almost a numbers game. There's a great quote that says, if you have confidence that you're going to get there, when you get a no, it's just one step closer to getting that yes. And that was the position I took on it. Not to say that it wasn't demoralizing, not to say that I didn't feel defeated every day, because I did. It was very emotionally exhausting and physically exhausting. I went to every meeting that I could in person. If somebody would meet me in person, I was there. Even if they didn't even know that I was going to ask them for money, I felt that if I could get in front of them, I would have a better, even just 2% better chance of getting fundraising from them.
And did you find that to be true when you were in the room with someone?
For sure. You know, if you're able to tell your story, they can look and feel the product. That's completely different than over Zoom. Although Brandon was over a phone call.
But he just had the conviction.
He knew.
Yeah. And so when you were getting all of those no's, you said that you packed in the conversations, you were doing over 10 a day sometimes. I would imagine that you tweaked that pitch as you were going. So what were some tactical things that you then changed maybe after your 20th no?
Yeah.
Were there things where you're like, oh, the way that I'm introducing Saie isn't landing? Were there any things that you remember?
It kind of goes back to what we were talking about as something I learned from having moved all the time, of like, even just those micro moments of somebody pausing after I would say something and me realizing like, oh, that's not hitting. Or someone would give me really direct feedback, and then I would take a second. Do I think that feedback is good feedback? Adjust accordingly. It wasn't after my 20th no. I was adjusting every single call, even if it was just in that micro way of, oh, I should start with this sentence. I should move this page of my pitch deck around. I should start talking about formulas earlier. Really honing every single time.
Out of curiosity, because the timing, you started having those conversations when?
I launched November 2019, and I finalized my fundraise at the beginning of that year.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was doing it no matter what in my mind. I did have a goal of $1 million fundraise because I had, laid out my P&L of like, what do I need to launch in a big way? Because from day one, I wanted Saie to be big. I was not starting Saie to be a hobby. I was not starting Saie to be a side project or a small brand. Like, I was going to be a top 10 brand at Sephora. I had a very clear vision of that, and I knew that I needed the funds to do that. But I started going before the fundraise was complete. So I had, I think, about $30,000 of equity from my stock at Estée Lauder that I sold to help pay for product development, that finance rigor that I wanted to have to prove to investors that I was had sound financial planning. I just started going.
Wow. So you were like, the round is not done yet, but I feel so strongly that this will exist, that I'm going to put my own money into it.
You know, I was very scared. I don't want to like give any illusions of like, I know this is going to happen. No, I was terrified. It was hard to sleep at night. You know, I really did not know that I was going to pull it off, but I felt like even if I only raised $200,000, I'm still going to do that and at least get it off the ground, and then I'll try to raise again. It was more that I was going to do it no matter what, not that I had 100% conviction that I was going to pull it off.
Okay. And another thing that I've heard you say is that, especially when you're in the early stages of raising capital, you're selling really yourself, and the idea is almost secondary.
Yep.
And my question for you is, how did you find that you were needing to position yourself in these conversations? Because a lot of these, maybe they're warm intros. I'm sure some of them were more colder intros, so they don't know Laney yet.
Yep.
So how did you think about presenting yourself to make someone want to invest in you?
That was such a good piece of advice that I heard early on, was that people will invest in the founder regardless of the idea of, if they know that that founder is going to keep going no matter what, can get through the hard times, will pivot when necessary. That's what people are looking for in a founder. I was really, though, sharing my background in big beauty. I was sharing my expertise in social media and influencer marketing. I was talking a lot about the community that I built at the moment that then became honestly a proof point and a testing ground to show that the demand was already there.
I'm curious when you were having those conversations, because just even having the moment and then going into this company, how often did you get the Emily at Glossier? Like, not comparison, but would people bring that up with you? Because at that point, especially at the time you were raising, Glossier they still are massive, but I feel like that Emily Weiss story was everywhere, especially at that time.
I think that the one thing that had changed was that Emily had raised quite a lot of money, and that trend was over. So it had been much easier to raise money earlier, and that trend had really completely died down. D2C was dead. People were just, raising money in different ways when I was raising money. So actually, it's funny you said it didn't come up that much.
Really?
Yeah. And I think maybe more what was hard for me to explain was the demand for products that are good for your skin, because a lot of the people that I was raising money from were men. It was difficult for me to explain that women care about the health of their skin. They care about the way that they feel. Every single makeup product on the market was not being formulated through that lens. And that Saie was formulating in a completely different way. That was skin first, skincare first, ingredients that were really nourishing for your skin. That was what came up more and was harder for me to explain.
And when you do launch in 2019, you are going direct to consumer. So obviously the brand is in Sephora and across the world in many countries. Can you take us back to the launch day?
Yes. So I had been approached by Sephora before we launched.
Oh, before?
And we had an article that came out in WWD about the brand and Unilever Ventures being our investor. And day after, I got an email from Sephora that was one line. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, like this is the dream. And I think I flew out to San Francisco twice. We had multiple conversations with them. And ultimately they were like, you only have 3 products. You're not ready. And it was a hard call to get, but I knew that they were right, that we weren't ready. I think I knew that there would be another chance. Looking back, what a gift, because 4 months later, COVID hit. And if I had spent all of our funds on inventory that was then sitting in stores that were closed, that honestly probably would have put us out of business.
Wow. So I have to go back to the one sentence that they sent you. What did it say?
I think it was, "Hi, this is Sharon. I'm from Sephora. Can we talk?" I think it was something like that.
And you're like, flying there tomorrow, booking my flight right now.
I thought it was spam, but yeah.
So, okay. So you knew if they even reached out at all, it's a great sign, but obviously the state of the business. So what were then the next 6 months like? Because as you said, COVID hits a few months into the business. Yeah. So what were you thinking at that point? And thank goodness you didn't send all this inventory to Sephora, but what were those first few months like?
Launch was really exciting. So I was so focused on getting the product into people's hands. And so that was honestly my number one thing, reaching out to people, saying that I'd love to send them product and having as many people be able to touch and feel the product as possible. And I wanted as much buzz as I possibly could on that day. So I got a van and we put decals over it. I think people thought that we owned it. We did not. We had rented it for a day, and we had flowers hand delivered to people with our product that I was friends with. I had built really incredible network when I was working in beauty and fashion that I tapped into every single person I knew that had a social presence. And so we were able to get a lot of buzz right out of the gate. We quickly followed our initial launch with Glowy Super Gel, which is our number one product, and put ourselves on the map talking about how we were just doing things really differently. Our formulations were meant to give you this lit from within glow. We were skin first. We were just talking about makeup in a way that nobody had. I was sitting there and I was like, I can't believe Sephora hasn't reached back out. Like, we have made such a huge splash. There's so much buzz. I finally got up the guts to email them. They wrote back within minutes and they said, "We were literally crafting an email to you as we speak." Then COVID hit while we were having those conversations. And I couldn't believe that they reached out and said, "We want to launch you in every single location." This was in April 2020. I remember where I was standing. I get even a little bit emotional talking about it. I remember where I was standing when it happened. My daughter was, I think, crying. I was holding her. She was 2 at the time. And the fact that they had the confidence to continue to move forward when all of their stores were closed, it was just such a testament to their vision and the fact that they were willing to take a chance on a brand that was doing something so different.
And you're a new brand at this point, and people are loving the products. But for Sephora to say, "We want you," you said, in every door, that doesn't happen, right?
They have a section called, they have the next big thing, and they have the clean end cap. And what's incredible about those opportunities is that Sephora funds those fixtures.
Wow.
So for a brand like mine, the fact that I didn't have to pay for any fixtures was huge. And we launched on 1 shelf. Then we moved to 2 shelves. Then we got our 1 bay. So we have had a very, slow and deliberate rollout in that sense compared to other brands that launched with a 1 bay right out of the gate.
When you were then, let's say, towards the end of 2020, so the pandemic has now very much been in full swing. How did the brand evolve over the first year? So you had the gel that came out, massive hit.
Yep.
Where were you at the end of 2020?
We launched Dew Blush and Slip Tint within that year, which are still our best sellers today. It was so crazy when you look back on it of is anybody going to buy any makeup? Is anybody going to buy anything? None of us had experienced a pandemic before. We had no idea how consumers were going to react. Honestly, it was a day-by-day kind of survival of the fittest of how do we preserve cash? How do we get our inventory? How do we continue to have communication? And that's where my editorial background really kicked in of how do we make buzz, continue to communicate. And we really took a huge focus over to our social channels. How do we create this world of Saie? And that's still something that we talk about and do every day of how are we creating this world around the brand, from activities that we create for our community, education that we're doing online or in person, collaborations, really all of it is that world.
And it's interesting that you say that, because I've had conversations on the podcast actually with Diana Cohen from Crown Affair, Baba from Ceremonia.
I love Baba.
Yeah. Amy from Tower 28. But I bring up these companies because they all launched around the same like 2-year period.
We're in the same class.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I actually think that it is a competitive advantage because they say with startups, right? The companies that are founded during economic downturns, the Ubers and all of these like really prolific, iconic companies come out when you have to be really scrappy and resilient and be
nimble.
And I think for the beauty class of that time period, that is absolutely the case with all of you guys. And I think the companies that are still around today in 2026 who came from that period are so crystal clear on their messaging, on the world that they're building. And I think as I hear you talk about how intentional you are about the storytelling element, it's very clear that you are like a best in class builder of this story. And you care so much about how your customer is reacting to everything.
I care so much because I'm the customer. We always joke because I am such a good customer. I love to shop, but I'm always thinking through that lens of how the consumer is experiencing something. I'm not a makeup artist. I'm a first-time founder. So for me, I'm always thinking through the lens of like really what that experience is on the other side.
And obviously you're a sole CEO, you're the founder, but you have a team around you.
I have an incredible team.
And so I want to talk about the team because this is, I think, another area, especially for people who are solo founders who are really looking to build a business that lives beyond them. You need rock stars beside you. So I want to talk about your first 3 key hires. So besides you, who did you end up bringing on first?
Sure. So product development was my very first hire. And that was very intentional because I knew that the key to this business was going to be formulas that were better than anybody else's. And so we have invested in our formulation from day one. And people were telling me, don't do that. They're like, you can get a product developer at a CM. You don't need to hire one in-house. My thesis was around formulas and performance. And so actually I went against that advice. And that was my first hire and the best decision I ever made. And then Erin, who is our creative director now, she was my second hire. And in those early days, she was doing everything from posting our social media to creating the assets to really being that creative creator across all worlds of what does the decal look like on that van or truck that we had? What is that mailer? How is that presenting to people? So that was my second hire. And then my third was operations. That is probably my biggest piece of advice for founders is if you don't have that supply chain and operations background, make sure you really invest. There's a flywheel that happens when you have incredible margins. You then have more money to market. You then have more awareness, which then leads to better margins and more money to market and more awareness. And having that unlock early is game changing.
And where did you find these initial people?
Great question. Well, product development, that was someone that I had worked with at Estée Lauder. She had left. I had always remembered really liking her. And I reached out and she was like, this is so crazy. I'm like packing my car up as you speak. I'm moving to LA. I'm leaving beauty. Like I'm done. But I did say the only thing I would work on is clean.
Wow.
And by the time she got to LA, we had a contract and she was off to the races. And Erin, I had met, she had reached out to me when I had my blog. She was, kind of pitching me ideas and we had become friends. And her name just kind of came to me like in this kind of wild moment of I was like, I just think I need to talk to Erin. We've been very close since then. And then operations, I think it was maybe even like LinkedIn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of people, especially when they're in the early stages, who you were in this different position because you had focused a lot of your time before you started Saie on building this community.
Yes.
So you had people who already knew about you, who trusted you, which puts you in such a better position, honestly.
That part was cool because it was not my intention. I think a lot of people now start blogs or start something to have a community for a brand.
Yeah.
It had never even occurred to me that I was going to start a brand. I was just having a conversation about something that I was really passionate about and excited about and interested in that then led to having this great jumping off point.
So for someone who is looking to hire their first people to build out their team, what would be your advice, given the three that you mentioned, on how to field if someone is really the right fit for what you're building?
Do you like them? Do they have the same values as you?
Yeah.
Are they hard workers? Are they good problem solvers?
Did you find that with everyone that you ended up actually hiring, so this is a little bit of a controversial one, some people feel like they know right away.
Yeah.
It's like within the first 5 minutes of a call. Do you feel that way generally, or does it take, a handful of calls and, maybe an in-person to really suss people out? And now your team, to be fair, is a lot bigger than it was than, we're talking about 2019. How do you think about those hiring decisions?
I think really trust your instincts. I think, we all have that little voice inside of us, and the more you listen to it, the stronger it gets. Do your references. So if someone says, oh, I have a non-compete, I can't do any reference checks, like, thanks so much, call me back when I can do that. When someone gives you references, talk to those people and then talk to other people that weren't the ones provided. I mean, back to the first thing I said, like, I love going to work and I love every single person that I work with. That's important to me. That's a value that I look for. And I want that for the team as well. I want them to look forward to going to work. So I think, making sure that you genuinely enjoy that person is important, which takes a little bit of time.
Yeah. And we've talked a little bit about the clean beauty element, but the area that I want to talk about is sustainability.
Okay.
Because this is really fundamental and critical to your mission and what you're building. So you say that Saie was built on the idea of feeling good and doing good. So I guess first, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. When I was starting Saie, I just thought so much about, the conversation that I had had with my community. It's where the name of the brand comes from. You say it, we create it. Because that community had been so clear and direct with me of exactly what they were looking for. They were looking for truly clean products that were great for their skin, that were high performance at a great price point. And so that has always been our North Star. And when it comes to sustainability, I was asking myself, what would make me feel good about creating a brand and putting an additional footprint on our planet? Do you really need another makeup brand? That was kind of the question that was ringing in my ears. And I said, well, what if we were to be here with the mission to create positive change? I know that myself, when I take action, I feel good. And so that was always part of our positioning from day one, that we were here to do things differently and have a beauty brand that was better from a 360-degree point of view.
And to dig into it, because people hear the word sustainable, right? And there are different types of definitions or ways of implementing it. So for someone who may not be familiar with the sustainable elements of Saie, what is the brand doing that you're the most proud of in that category?
I mean, our goal is to create industry-wide change. And so we have the Saie Climate Initiative, which has really put our stake in the ground of we are here to create true, meaningful, lasting change. We've made really big commitments. We have an incredible partnership with Repurpose, collecting plastic. The beauty industry creates 129 billion units of plastic every single year, most of which is not able to be recycled because of the size. So we are collecting millions of pounds around the world of plastic through our partners Repurpose. There's so much I can talk about here because our work here is so extensive. We just had an amazing campaign with Sephora called Planet Beautiful with 12 brands that all committed to collecting plastic and doing so in a really significant, meaningful way. So just that campaign alone collected over 1 million pounds of plastic. We are part of the climate pledge with Amazon, which is a really huge commitment, an aggressive one to be carbon zero by 2039. The list goes on. Really, every decision that we make at Saie is through that lens, even down to our curtains that are not coated. When you touch our curtains, you can feel the paper, and that's purposeful so that those curtains can even go into your compost. Yes, they will be recycled better, but they're compostable.
And when we're talking about sustainability, something that I've always been curious about, because you're right, I think I'm hearing the story, I'm hearing just how you're thinking about sustainability, and I'm just like, why aren't all brands doing this, right? Especially if you look at consumer products. And we all know that so much of what we consume is not easily recyclable and then ends up in some trash bin somewhere. But I think what I'm curious about is how it actually impacts your P&L. Can you share a choice that you've made at Saie where you opted to choose the more sustainable option, but it actually ended up being a lot costlier for you?
Every decision that you make for sustainability is more expensive for the most part. We've gotten to scale now so that those choices aren't affecting our P&L in a way that's hard to justify. But yeah, doing the right thing is more expensive. That's why not everybody does it.
And I would imagine when you started out, you said you raised $1 million. It's still, in the world of beauty, everyone, $1 million is like a few pennies.
Yeah, it's not much.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to get into Sephora and build and market your product. I guess for you, did the sustainability element kind of scale as your brand grew? Because I would imagine that doing some of the costlier things in the beginning just was harder.
It was harder. I mean, but also we're part of 1% for the planet. So 1% of our sales goes to repurpose, which is a ginormous investment. And that actually investment gets bigger and bigger as we grow. I think that there's a subconscious level for every consumer that whether they make that choice knowingly or not, they want a brand that has value and has values. When consumer reads about what we're doing, that will stick with them someplace and they will choose Saie over another brand because they want to be part of those values and they want a brand that aligns with their values.
When you talk to your customers, which sounds like you're doing all of the time, the sustainability element, do you find that that is one of the key reasons that actually draws people in before they even have tried the
not
products?
At all.
Really?
No.
Okay. So it's 100%, really
100%. It's the buzz around the brand. It's the formulas. That's what gets people coming. They want the look and feel. They want to be part of the conversation that's happening. Once they try our formulas, they're hooked. Our formulas are very expensive. Luxury skincare with beautiful pigments that melt into your skin. They have gorgeous textures. And once you experience it, like you just don't want to go back. I think they learn about the sustainability efforts that we're doing once they become part of the brand.
I'd love to talk to you about how you think about the broader industry, because as we know, beauty is very competitive.
Yeah.
There seemingly is, a new brand launching
every
all the
day.
time.
Yeah.
And how do you think about focusing on what you're building versus everything else that's out there? Because I imagine the brand is very active on social media. You have a massive following. And even on Instagram, on TikTok, it's hard to not get pulled into what everyone else is doing, I would imagine.
It is hard. I think that I love to be the first. So that keeps us having kind of our foot on the pedal. It keeps us really focused on always moving the needle forward. We have a lot of fun doing it. I would say that's a kind of part of our secret sauce is we're having a good time. We love coming up with new ideas. I do think that once you are looking around, that's honestly like kind of the beginning of the end of like, let's go do what they did. The consumer's so savvy. Like they know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would imagine how quickly things move too. If you're not laser focused on what you specifically are doing and what's next in the pipeline for you, then speed to put out stuff probably slows down a lot. So really just needing to be focused on exactly what is also making you different too. Because the second you try and copy someone else, you lose that. So we've talked a lot about how Saie has really had this explosive launch and the company's profitable at this point.
Yes.
From the outside, Saie is a massive success, but I'd imagine because you're managing this very quickly growing company, there are some things that still keep you up at night. So can you share one or two of them?
Sure. I think a lot about my team and making sure that they feel good and fulfilled and supported. That definitely keeps me up at night. I think a lot about what we were just talking about. How do we keep moving the needle? Where is the right place for us to be showing up? How do we show up there? How do we tell our story in a way that the consumer wants to absorb and how they want to hear it? Maybe I'm making it clear that I'm a worrier. It's always top of mind for me of, are we showing up in the right place? Are we communicating things correctly? How are we changing with everybody and maybe even a little bit ahead of them, but not too much ahead of them. I would say the political climate keeps me up a lot at night. Tariffs were really damaging to the entire industry, incredibly detrimental. And it's very scary to think that we just have no idea at any point of time when is going to change and when. Fuel prices keep me up at night. I don't know, the list goes on.
On the other side, I'm sure there were things, especially, your words, you're a little bit of a worrier. Yeah. So in the early days, you said that, there was a lot clearly on your plate to manage at the time. Is there anything that you worried about a lot at the beginning, maybe the first year, that you now wish you could look back and say, hey, Laney, chill out about this?
Chill out. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I'm a worrier or if I'm an overthinker. I think a lot about everything. Early days. Well, I definitely didn't need to worry about an office when we launched because we were then remote for 2 years. And, I really wanted this beautiful office and place for us to go. And thank goodness I hadn't signed the lease yet. I worried a lot about our key retailer and finding that key retailer because I dreamed of being at Sephora, but I did not know that was going to happen. And now I feel so lucky that we had them as incredible partners.
I also want to talk about one of the biggest buzzwords in brands, which we've talked a lot about today, and that is community.
Okay.
And Saie's community is so strong. I think it's really even integral into the name itself, as you said, Saie. Also, question about the name. Did you know the name of the brand was going to be Saie from the very beginning? When did that come to you?
I did not know. We worked with an agency called Combo. I remember we were sitting in a room and we were just kind of playing around with words. And I kept going back to, well, they said this and the community said that. And he said, well, what about Saie? And he wrote out SAY. And I said, that feels like a direct-to-consumer
it does.
Brand. I was like, I had lived in Paris, and so I changed the Y to an IE. And we checked the trademark, and it was available, which was a big part of, it's a very hard part about naming a brand. I knew that people were going to have a hard time pronouncing it, but I was like, maybe that will actually create a little bit of buzz. When I was launching, I was making decisions so quickly. I did not deliberate on it for very long. I was like, nope, feels good. Let's go.
I love that. Back to Saie's community. So the community is so strong, but how do you think from the leadership level, but also just like operationally, how do you think about growing and cultivating that community? Because it's one of those words, it is slapped on everything. Yeah. And some brands say the word community, and I kind of believe that their community is really weak. That's not the case with Saie at all. Your community is extremely strong because you see it. You see it whenever you post anything, like the fans are there and people are really excited about any kind of experience that you guys have IRL or online. So how do you think about building community?
I think about what the value is for them. That's always kind of my question in my head of like, how do we create value for them? So I think something I'm really proud of is the class that we have online, and it's Makeup 101. And that was born out of our community and people that we know saying, I don't know how to do my makeup. As someone who's not a makeup artist and does find things to be intimidating, I was like, oh, let's teach them. And it has grown into such an incredible initiative for us that we do in store, we do it online. We have a new destination that's going to be built out on our website for it, where you can go and access past classes, but we do them over Zoom. People can ask questions. We do them live on TikTok. We're really we show up everywhere with that. And that is just our way of having value for our community, of something that they don't pay for. We do it as just a benefit of being part of the community. And that's just one example.
Your face is literally the face of the community because you are not only the founder, but you built this company, right? How do you think about you showing up? Yeah. Obviously, everyone talks about building in public and the founder is the face of the brand.
It's totally changed. When I started, I don't think people, I didn't put any effort into my social media. I would show up from time to time, but as the brand has grown and as the community has said like that they really love hearing from me, I've put more time and resources behind that. So I have my Substack. I do podcast interviews with everyone from the president of Planned Parenthood to the chief sustainability officer from Amazon to our new head of impact, Lauren Singer. I do a lot more content on social. I'm even, part of creative campaigns that we do now. And that's all in the last 2 years that I've had the resources and time to do that.
Do you enjoy it?
I do. I love it. I mean, my favorite thing is meeting the community. So getting to meet people that love Saie and ask them how they use it and where it is in their routine and when they discovered it. I didn't get to do that for the first 2 years of the brand. So it's still something that I cherish every single time.
Well, I want to ask you a few questions about this life that you're building, because this whole conversation has been about you building Saie, but obviously your life is a lot larger than that. And I want to talk about some of the trade-offs that go into building. It sounds like you have been basically sprinting for 6 full years.
I don't know any other speed. Yeah.
And I mean, that's why you've been successful. I mean, you're 6 years in, you're not planning on stopping anytime soon. But when you think of the hardest trade-offs, professionally and personally, what do you think those have been?
I think obviously everything in life is a yin and a yang, but I've been having such an incredible time. And as we started our conversation talking about it, like to me, this has been the best time of my life. It's hard for me to say like what a trade-off was other than I had kids at the same time. And that was really hard. Like the sleep deprivation, not being there for every single pickup. But, you know, I'm so happy that my kids get to see me building Saie. I don't know that I would call it a trade-off even. I'm very present with them when I'm with them. We have a very flexible work from office policy. I live about 3 hours outside of the city. I go into the office during the week, but when I'm with my kids, I'm super present with them, and that feels great.
There's so much that you've accomplished since you've been running Saie and even before that. But what do you think to date is the biggest pinch me moment or moment that you are really proud of?
Time 100. Speaking of expanders, like that was not even on my vision board. I didn't even know that I should put that on there.
How did you find out, and what did you do when you found out?
I don't know. I probably got teary-eyed. That seems to be what I do. I don't know. I think I just probably was on the phone with Des and screamed a little bit.
Also, congrats.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Speaks to everything that you're doing. Yeah. I mean, Time 100 is, I mean, that's not beauty. That is everything.
We were the only beauty brand.
Outside of Saie, obviously, what other brands or companies inspire you?
Gosh, I'm so inspired by Patagonia. I think that's a brand that has, I don't know if you've read the founder's book. I look at that brand all the time. And just in terms of how they do this, they do beautiful films and storytelling. They're so crystal clear on their mission and their value and who their consumer is. They're just always best in class from my point of view. I love Ben & Jerry's. I know that they've had some movement with their founders, but I still think they're incredibly vocal in the way that they are very just timely in what they communicate and post about. My friend Daniela, who's the founder of a brand called Kalmeyer, she has been designing her brand for over 10 years. And we were in a cab downtown the other day and we were just talking, and she said, you know what, my biggest aha moment was when I realized that nobody can do what you do. She meant that for everybody. And I think that it is so profound when you think about the fact that nobody else can host this podcast. Nobody else can start Saie. No one else, in the sense of like, you are you. You are one of one. I think about that for everyone.
I love that. It's like the ultimate confidence booster, no matter what.
I also love their clothes. Like everything is so chic. I want to wear every single thing she makes.
All right, we're going to the last 3 questions I ask every guest. So the first one, can you share a system that you have in place that benefits your career or business? And it can really be a system for anything.
I try to bucket my days. This was a tip I learned from Sarah Blakely, where Mondays are about product. Tuesdays are about branding and the brand. Wednesdays, I transition over to operations and kind of so on and so forth. And having my meetings be about one topic each day just really helps me be more efficient.
That's great. Because the context switching tax is serious when you're always going between things.
You don't make as good of decisions.
Yeah. So the next question comes from our social currency corner, where I get your input on a business story or trend that's impacting business and culture. I'm very excited to get your opinion on this because all over TikTok and all over social, everyone's been talking about the acquired style bachelorette. It was sponsored by Swan Beauty.
Yeah.
And everyone seemed to have a different opinion on this because obviously, I mean, it was a very lavish event. They were doing the private jet in the villa and everything. And Swan Beauty had, the mirror was on the plane and it was incorporated into some of the social content. But when you watched the Swan Beauty story unfold, what was your gut reaction as a founder in the beauty space?
Two things. I thought it was super smart. I thought that why not? You know, what a great way to cut through the noise. What a great way to get impressions and speak to the right audience for the brand. So I thought it was super smart. I think the other thing that's really interesting is that the algorithm has changed so much. I barely saw it. I saw a couple posts about it, but it was not all over my feed at all. That's new. You know, it used to be when you went viral, everybody saw it.
Oh, yeah.
And now, you know, the algorithm has changed so that things are really much more niche. They're much more by interest. And so when you see something that you think is everywhere, there's lots of people that aren't seeing it at all.
Oh, totally. Totally. So with everything that happened with Swan Beauty, do you think that this could be some degree of the new influencer marketing playbook where
the new playbook?
Yeah, where brands are now sponsoring these life events. I mean, it's happening to some degree, but I
think
feel like
it was already happening.
But this felt like it was, I think the pure cash outlay that probably had to happen.
Okay.
Seemed like it was bigger than ever because it was easily, if you just look at the cost of these things, easily 6 figures.
Yeah. I mean, that's not that much. When you think about the amount of awareness that she got, I think it was great. I think that it had already been happening. I think this one, for whatever reason, sparked a lot of controversy. I personally, as a brand, don't love being part of controversy. That's where my comfort level lies. But I think that if you're willing to go there, like, go for it. Like, what an amazing way to be part of a conversation.
Okay. All right. So no Saie sponsoring controversial bachelorettes in the future. But
well, I never say never of like what we would do. I mean, I don't know that it'll create the playbook, but I think it could create a playbook.
Okay. So let's end with a listener question.
Okay.
This question comes from Maya. Hi, Laney. I'm 31. I've spent 6 years working at a big CPG brand, and I have an idea for a product that I genuinely believe in, but I'm paralyzed on the financial side. I don't have a partner with a big income to fall back on, and the idea of not paying myself for the first year terrifies me. How did you actually structure your life and your finances to make those first 2 years survivable? And at what point did you know it was time to either commit or walk away?
So I had a consulting business when I had the blog The Moment. I don't talk about that very much just because it was, maybe a year or two after Estée, I was consulting, but I was doing that the whole time that I had The Moment. I had at one point up to like 10 or 12 clients, and I was doing both things at the same time. So that would definitely be my piece of advice was, however shape or form you can have those you can parallel track. That's what I would do, because I personally wouldn't feel comfortable with that level of pressure, although I do think pressure is a great thing.
And going back to your story, I remember hearing that when you started Saie, you weren't actually taking a proper salary,
I didn't take
right?
a salary for probably was about 3 years, but I was married. And so that was like a financial decision we made as a family.
I think your advice, though, if you're in a position where you can do something to have additional income coming in. I mean, I'm the same way from a sanity perspective. Yeah. I don't think I'd be able to handle just putting all of my eggs into one basket and saying like, I'm not going to pay myself. I'm going to just live off of my savings and just make it work. I think it's probably good to hedge and have some other money coming in. Well, Laney, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I'm a personal fan of your products. I think they really are, for anyone who's listening who hasn't tried Saie's products, like the glowiest products that make you feel like a better version of yourself, but not like a indistinguishable version of yourself, if that makes sense. So thank you. Thanks for all the work that you're doing. And the climate stuff is amazing too.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I love your conversations, and you can find Saie at all Sephoras and Sephora.com.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Social Currency. Before you go, take a second to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. And if you liked what you heard today, please rate and review the podcast. It massively helps the work I do to bring this show to life. And if you have a friend who is as obsessed with business and culture as you are, send this episode to them, because sharing the show is one of the best ways to support it. And if you want to keep up with the hottest business lore in real time, follow me on Instagram at Sammi Cohen Talks and subscribe to my newsletter, Social Currency, Currency, linked in the show notes. Social Currency is a production of Social Currency Media and Money News Network. The podcast is hosted and executive produced by me, Sammi Cohen, and produced by the Money News Network team. See you next time.